What's up, world? Back at it again with the N54 project. As you guys can see, the engine's on the stand. I got the old motor here on the floor. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to be replacing the rod bearings. I have the parts over here. ARP bolts, part number 2016303. I got MOLY slip assembly lube. I got some Loctite, some brake cleaner, some new bed plate hardware. I got the Calico bearings, and I mocked up this little paper to put the old bearings to see what's the wear conditions after 130,000 miles. So I'm gonna remove the oil pump on this motor first because it's blocking number 1 cylinder. So from what I can see right here, it looks like the chain is gonna stay in place, so I don't have to relieve any tension. So the first thing I'm gonna do is remove the center nut. Okay, world, so the N54 is in front of me. If you watch how they build engines inside the factory, especially Bugatti or Ferrari or one of those companies, they have what they call a clean room, where not even the single speck of dirt can enter inside the engine, because those little grains of dirt can actually cause wear to the motor. I don't have the best controlled environment, but I'm gonna do my best to keep it contamination free. So I'm gonna use sterile gloves, and I'm gonna try to keep as much dust from entering the engine as I can. What I plan on doing, I'm gonna flush the motor with the first oil change, and then I'm gonna change the oil again. Okay, world, so I'm gonna use my impact gun to remove the nut holding the sprocket to the oil pump. You could use a breaker bar and hold the crankshaft pulley and then use a hand tool, but if you have a impact, it'll work just fine. However, don't use any impact tools to tighten any of these bolts. So I got the bolt off. I'm just gonna set it down right over there. Okay, so all these bits are inverted torch sockets. You could use standard sockets, but I prefer to use the inverted torch sockets. So I'm gonna pull these 2 screws off of the front here, and once you get these removed, it's a matter of slightly prying that gear off of the pump shaft and then wiggling the pump out. But first I'm gonna remove these bolts holding the pump down. There are 3 bolts. One is really long, this one that's right here in the back, so take mental note of that, and then the other 2 are identical. A little more screwdriver action. There she goes. She came loose. Okay, got the pump out finally. So I'm just gonna rest it right here. I'm gonna grab it with these paper towels, wrap it up nice and neat because I will be reusing this oil pump. I'm gonna set it off to the side. Yeah, I'll set it down right over there. So me and my bro are gonna rotate the engine now. Guys usually do this while the engine's still in the car, so they're working basically underneath the motor. So I'm going to take full advantage of this engine stand right now and put the motor on its side. That way I can access the connecting rods much easier, and you guys can have a good clear view of what's going on inside. This motor is super heavy, even though it looks compact, I guess because most of the internals are forged. This has some serious weight to it. So I got the dowel pin, locked that in, so now we're secure. Okay guys, now you can see cylinders 1 through 6. So I already went ahead and did cylinder 1 and cylinder 2 because the first one was like a total learning curve. It was kind of tricky. I didn't know how I was going to get the bearing back in, but I developed a method that works flawlessly. So now I'm on cylinder number 3, currently taking out the old rod bolts, and then I'm gonna pop this cap off and put that down.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna use my fingers and push the piston back up, and I'm gonna clear the crankshaft, and then I'm gonna put the connecting rod on the bottom away from the crankshaft. Then I'm gonna use this needle nose pliers here to pull the crankshaft, not the crankshaft, to pull the rod back to me, as you can see just now. And then I'm gonna slide the bearing out. You kind of just twist it and it like pops right out. And then the next step, I'm gonna clean it, because you want it to be free of any kind of debris, and you don't want oil on that part of the rod. So I'm gonna spray this brake cleaner in here. I'm not sure if that's the best thing to spray in there, but it gets the oil off. So cleaning it, I'm gonna stick some napkins in the bottom of this piece right here to absorb all the fluid, and then I'm gonna install the upper bearing. It's very important that you note upper and lowers. They're two different thicknesses or some clearance type of things, so you don't want to mix them up. So I'm gonna just clean that surface right there. Clean that surface, and then I got the bearing. Got to make sure the tang is lined up. If you look carefully at the bearings, you're gonna see this little metal tab that has to go inside of a groove. It's important you line this metal tab up and that the bearing is flush, not cocked off on one side. And then see, I got it in there. So next I'm gonna apply this MOLY slip assembly lube to the crankshaft itself and onto the black coated surface of the bearing. You don't ever want to assemble these dry and start the motor, because you will damage it. So I'm going to make sure this is nice and lubed up. Put some on the bearing. And be mindful when you're doing this, you want to keep a clean pair of gloves on your hands, especially when you're applying the lubricant to the surface where it's going to ride on, because you don't want any dirt or contaminations in that area. So then you kind of push the piston back up into the cylinder, and then you swing it around over on top of the crankshaft, and then you pull it back down. I managed to do that with my bare hands. So you see, it's right back on top of the crankshaft. Now this is super important. Make sure when you install the cap, you have it facing the correct orientation, because the connecting rods was forged as a single piece and they split them. So it's not a machined mating surface. Each mating surface is unique. So the tang or the tab, whatever you guys want to call it, they both have to be facing each other. So that's how you know you got it on the right side. So right now I'm lubing the bearing and installing the bearing on the cap, and then I'm going to put it on. Okay, so I lubed the ARP bolts with the fastener lube, and now I'm just screwing them in hand tight. I'm going to run them down snug, and then I'm going to start torquing them in about 3 passes. The ARP specs calls for 36 foot-pounds, and I'm just going to take it up to 10, then do the other bolt, take it to 10, and then go to 20, and then finally I'll finish off with 36. The process is completely the same that I used for every single cylinder. So once you get the hang of the one, you'll be able to do the rest.
Nightmares creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire. Still, don't stop that thrill. My bones crave your skin. Temptation within. Mistakes ignite the silence. Nightmares creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
Okay world, I have all 6 connecting rod bearings here out on my little chart. On the lower portion, that is the lowers, and the upper portion is the uppers. As you can see, I made an excellent choice by changing them, especially when we start going down from number 2 down to number 6, which is really bad. Look at that. So they've been scored. So this is after 130,000 miles with a cold start with no oil in the pan, and this is the result. That's the lower for number 1. This is the upper for number 1, the upper for number 2, the lower for number 2, and you guys get the point. So I'm just gonna go down the line. You see that big score in there. Yeah, so I made it just in time. Managed to save a motor. It's $3,500 motor when you buy it used. Wow. Number 6 is really bad. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the oil pump. Good guys, when you reinstall the pump, there's a dowel pin here. You see this hole where the bolt goes, and there's a dowel pin here. What you want to do is set it on the rear dowel pin and then swing the pump clockwise over to the front dowel pin. Then if you look closely, the gear on the pump, it has a flat section. Right here is flat, and across from it is flat. So you need to line the shaft up so that the gear goes on. don't know where my mallet's at right now, so I'm gonna use this piece of wood. Try to get some of the dirt off of it. So that's good, it's flush. So I have the hardware here for the bed plate and the oil pump. This is part number right there. I gotta turn the ISO down a little bit so you guys can see this. This is the hardware right here. It comes as a kit for the bed plate and the oil pump. I'm gonna go ahead and open this. And the super long bolt, which is the longest bolt in the kit, it goes down here. Now I'm debating if I should put thread locker on this because I seen a video and the guy oil pump bolts came loose and wrecked his motor. So I don't know if you should or should not do it with torque to yield. Okay, so here's the tricky part, guys. I have my technical data sheet here, and if you look, oil pump to bed plate, it's telling me that it's an M8 by 123. I'm not sure if that's millimeters or what. Then it says right here 10 Newton meters, then 180 degrees. So I'm gonna put these bolts, the longest bolt in the kit goes in that rear part of the pump. And I got two more bolts like this. I'm gonna match up with my old oil pump hardware to see if it's the same size. So these were the two bolts that came out of there, and this is the new one. So you see it's identical. So I know these two are my bolts, so I could discard these. This bolt. This bolt. Gonna be E14. So I'm just gonna run them down by hand. Yo, what you do with the ratchet?
What ratchet?
The hand ratchet. Oh, pass me the torque wrench. Okay, world. So according to my instructions, I have to do 10 Newton meters and then 180 degrees and 10 Newton meters and 90 degrees because there's two different lengths that hold the oil pump down. So he says M8 by 123, that's the long bolt, because the other one is M8 by 31. So I'm gonna go ahead and torque them down to 10 Newton meters right now. So all of them are torqued to 10. Now I got to figure out how to use the angle meter on this tool because I never used it before. So we're gonna go into units. I still don't see it. 100. Okay, here we go. Zeroing torque angle. Set still. Okay. Setting still. Okay, there it goes. So I think it's ready. So I gotta go to 180, it said? Okay. Long. Okay. So 180 is like from 3 o'clock to yeah, from 3 to 9 o'clock. So I'm gonna start here. It should get to 180 by the time I get over here. Let's go. It's counting. $165, $170, and there it is, 180. That was awesome. Snap-on is a beast. So now I'm gonna set it to 90. You guys want to see? We're gonna put it on 90. Okay, you guys see I got that on 90. So 90 is a quarter of a turn. I should be going from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Okay, going to 90 degrees. Just counting. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. You're getting there. That's it. I love this tool. I'm gonna have to buy my own. Ooh, I went to 94, it said. Next time I go slower. But that thing is torqued. That's it. So now I gotta do these two smaller bolts. I gotta find the specs for those. So referring to the chart, chain module to crankcase and oil pump. Okay, it says M6 and M8 sprocket to oil pump. So the bolts, these are very small, so you can tell by the number. M6 is definitely going to be these two, and the M8 is going to be the big one in the middle. So I got to do 4 Newton meters and then 45 degrees angle. So I'm going to change that over to Newton meters. Put it on 4. Holy crap, it doesn't go to 4. Okay guys, so now I'm gonna torque these two little bolts in the front. So according to my chart, it says chain module to crankcase and oil pump. M6 is gonna be 4 Newton meters and 45 degrees. I had to transfer over to my small Newton meters because the snap-on didn't go to 4. It stopped at 6.8. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these to 4. That's 4. Now we're going to transfer over to angle and do 45 degrees. Forty-five is half a 90. So if I'm at 12 o'clock, it's about 2 o'clock. So that's torque. This bolt in the middle, I ordered a new one. It should be here on Monday, so I think this is reusable, but I'm not going to reuse it. I'm not going to take any chances with this thing. Alright, so I got the bed plate here. I just cleaned it with some brake cleaner. I actually used the one from the bad motor because the other one got damaged when the oil pan cracked, so I'm gonna use this one. It's clean. So this guy covers the rods. Let's see how this goes now. I think it goes like this. Yep. Put that guy down like that. And then the sump goes inside the oil pump right there. So this is the sump. This is actually the oil pickup tube. You see it has an O-ring on the end of this. This is what I'm waiting for. So hopefully it'll be here on Monday. So right now I'm just gonna put this in there so I know where the longer bolts go, so I don't install those right now until I get the O-ring. I'm just gonna clean this off real quick. Piece of it broke right there when it jumped the curb, but it's fine. The other one I'm not gonna use because there was so much metal inside that pan that the pickup screen was all covered in metal, so I'll just use this one. So this guy goes in here like so. So now I can see 1, 2, 3 bolts are going to be different. So I'm just going to do the ones around it. So I got the hardware right here. Then I'm going to check my torque specs on the bed plate. Okay, so it says intake pipe bed plate. Those are the longer bolts. So the 3 that I'm gonna install later after I get the O-ring is 4 Newton meters, then 100 degrees. The rest of the bolts are the same, like the ones that I did previously just now. So it's 4 Newton meters and then 45 degrees. So you always want to run the bolts down by hand. What I'm going to do though, I'm not going to tighten them, but I'm going to put these in so that everything lines up. Alright, we're going 4 Newton meters. I'm going to switch to snap-on and do 45 degrees. Zeroing angle. Okay, it's already set. Okay, so these 3 I'm going to leave out for now because I need this O-ring. Actually, I'm going to take this off so I don't forget.
And we like cars real built, you know, like buying cars that's already built.